order. All rise if able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome everyone to the June 29, 2026 Acushnet Town Meeting. My name is Les Dakin and I'm your town moderator. I've been informed that the warrant has been properly executed with the terms of service in accordance with our bylaws. So let's start with introductions with this gentleman closest to me at the dais.
Darren Klein, Town Council, KP Law. Nice to see everyone. Adam Lamonte, Town Administrator. Nice to see you all this evening.
Bob Hinckley, Board of Selectmen.
Kevin Gasper, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen. Ryan Resendes, Board of Selectmen. Mike Boucher, Chairman of the Finance Committee.
Susan Delgado, Vice Chair of the Finance Committee.
David Glassman, Assistant Town
Pamela Warranty, Town Clerk.
And now the table directly in front of me, the Finance Committee, with our former Town Administrator, Jamie Kelly.
Jamie Kelly. Eric Green, Finance Committee.
Lisa Lasky, Tomlinson, Finance Committee.
Good evening, Kristen Flynn, Finance Committee.
Peter Benoit, Finance Committee. Jesse Ellis, School Committee.
Melissa Codera, Vice Chair of the School Committee.
Ron Hood, Chair of the School Committee.
Ebony McGlynn, School Committee.
John Howcroft, School Committee.
Paula Bailey, School Superintendent.
Paolo Petronio, Business Manager.
Thank you. And I'd like to point out we have a distinguished visitor with us here tonight, Mark Sylvia, our state representative, right here. Thank you, Mark. At this time, we'd like to take a few minutes to extend our appreciation to Jamie Kelly, our town administrator, for his demonstrated expertise, experience, and professionalism during his tenure here serving the people of Acushnet. He utilized his knowledge and experience in the areas of public finance and administration, contract negotiations, human resources, and expense reduction, which enabled the town, in concert with the Board of Selectmen, Finance Committee, the School Committee, and the department heads, enabling us to live within the constraints of Proposition 2.5. Despite confronting some challenging financial issues, Acushnet maintained excellent service levels while controlling expenses. On a personal level, Mr. Kelly was particularly supportive to me as a new town moderator 4 years ago. His demeanor and professionalism were very welcoming. He's the main driver for the reasons in the warrant subsequent to each article that explains in real terms what the league believes in the article is stated. I feel, and I trust you feel, this has streamlined our meetings by enabling voters to readily understand the articles and reducing or eliminating many questions due to misunderstanding or confusion. Mr. Kelly will be retiring before our next town meeting. Please join us in wishing him the very best in this, the next chapter of his life's journey. Thank you, Jamie.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Gasper.
can I address town meeting members?
Okay?
Thank you, town meeting members. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So we're joined tonight by an individual who didn't put his name on the ballot and chose not to run for re-election in this past election. But I want to recognize this individual because We did a write-in campaign for that individual, and he graciously accepted the position that he's here with us tonight for. He didn't have to do it. He understood the position of the town. He knew how important the annual town meeting is to the taxpayers of this community. So on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, all the hard-working members of town meeting, and all the hard-working taxpayers of Acushnet, I would like to say thank you to Mr. Lestake and our town moderator for doing this.
Now, you've noticed we have a new town administrator up on the dais. I'd like to take a few minutes to introduce you to him. Adam Lamontagne was selected from a field of 48 candidates for this position. He holds a master's degree in public administration from Westfield State University. He's been recognized with certifications from the Moakley Center for Public Management, the Massachusetts Municipal Association, and the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. He's certified as a Massachusetts municipal purchasing official. He has served previously the City of Chicopee on the Conservation Commission and the School Committee representative. He served as a city councilor in the City of Chicopee for 6 years and the town administrator in Templeton, Mass. For 4.5 years. He most recently held the position of Chief Administrative Officer in Phillipston, Mass. For the past year. We look forward to working with Adam in the coming years. Please join us in giving him a warm welcome to Acushnet. There's truly been a season of change since our last meeting, and we have a new selectman here that you voted in, Brian Resendes. I first met him last October when we served together on the selectman interview committee, and that was searching for the new town administrator position. He quickly impressed me as highly intelligent, well-informed about town affairs, and demonstrated due diligence in applying high standards and common sense to his decision-making. In his own words, he believes in transparency in government, fiscal responsibility, and his commitment to the residents and taxpayers that every decision he makes will be in the best interest of the town on an overall basis. I feel you made a wise decision in electing him your next selectman. Please join us in welcoming him into the board. Also, I'd like to acknowledge Eric Chu, who is resigned from the Finance Committee because he had relocated for his many years of service to the town. Eric, we wish you the best. We understand and appreciate you all have busy, demanding lives, and we thank you for the privilege of your time. Each and every one of you tonight will have the opportunity to question, comment, amend, modify, and ultimately approve or reject each article in this $38 million budget and associated warrant articles. This is your meeting, your tax dollars. Your participation is not only encouraged, it's your absolute right. A few housekeeping items. Please note the center floor is reserved for registered voters in town and Acushnet department heads only. Non-registered voters, visitors, and observers are to be seated to the side of center. Each registered voter was presented with a blue card upon verification of voting status. And those cards will be the only means of voting tonight when raised to be counted. Kindly silence all your cell phones so as not to disturb the meeting. And please note the location of the emergency exit nearest you in the event we need to evacuate the building. The restrooms are in the hallway to my right. I'll quickly take you through the process summary. I won't be reading every article verbatim, but will provide a summary of each. The full text is on the handouts provided to you when you entered. If you would like to speak on an article, line up at the microphone. Non-residents will not be allowed to speak unless they are department heads, town employees, or the majority of the registered voters agree to let them speak. When recognized by the moderator, clearly state your name and town address before speaking. You have the absolute right to understand what you're voting on. Articles are written to comply with the law, and the full intent of the article may not be clear to you as well as to others. Everyone here is entitled to question any aspect of an article, and we will address every question asked. Procedurally, all questions shall be directed through the moderator to maintain decorum and make efficient use of our time. Speak only to the motion at the moment. Rude or disrespectful speech will not be tolerated. Direct conversations between participants will only be allowed if it serves to answer important questions and is deemed to be beneficial to the meeting efficiency. Please remember there is a distinct difference between questions and answers and debates. All may speak on a motion as many times as they like, but no one may speak twice until all who wish to speak have spoken once. I do reserve the right to limit discussion once we reach the onerous point of repetition. Without objection, I reserve the right to recess at any point. Motions must be made to amend any item, which would be voted on, then we need to vote on the article as a whole. Motions to amend must be in writing and signed above your printed name. This is to ensure accuracy and complying with the legal requirements of town meeting. Excuse me. When an article has multiple line entries, I'll read each line item individually. If you wish to discuss any line item, please raise your hand and state hold when I read that line. We'll return to that line when all have been read. You need not identify yourself to hold an item, but be prepared to speak on it when we return. All right, it's hot tonight. We got a lot of work to do. Let's get started. Article 1. See if the town will accept the reports of its officers, boards, departments, committees, and commissions as printed in the 2025 annual report, or act on anything relative thereto. This will need a simple majority. This is a standard annual article for the acceptance of the annual report. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to accept the reports of its officers, boards, departments, committees, and commissions as printed in the annual report.
Second. Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee recommended this article unanimously.
Discussion. Here is no discussion, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of Article 1? Those opposed? Article 1 passes unanimously. Article 2, prior fiscal year invoice. See if the town will raise and appropriate a transfer from free cash a sum of $6.79 to pay bills from prior fiscal years, or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. Both this will take a 4/5 majority to pass 80%. This simply stated is bills for goods and services we received in one fiscal year, but the bill didn't come in until the next fiscal year. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to transfer from free cash a sum of $6.79 to pay unpaid bill from prior fiscal years for Rocky's Ace Hardware. Second.
Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee voted to approve this article unanimously.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of Article 2? Those opposed? Article 2 passes unanimously. Articles 3 through 10 are known as the consent agenda. These are articles that are routine annual articles enabling the town to do business. This is being done for the efficient use of time, and I propose we vote on them together. As I stated earlier, if you wish to discuss any particular article, 3 through 10, when I read it, raise your hand and stay hold. When all have been read, we will return to any held items. We will then vote on the consent agenda in its entirety. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move Article 3 through 10, the so-called consent agenda, is printed in the warrant.
Second.
Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee recommended this article unanimously.
Article 3, the PEG Access and Cable Fund. That stands for Public, Educational, and Governmental. See if the town will vote to appropriate the summer sums of money from the PEG Access and Cable Related Fund, the sum of $240,000, with the expenses for public access as follows. Salaries and wages, $100,000. General expense, $90,000. Cable Reserve Fund, $50,000. Total of $240,000. The sum be raised as follows. Cable franchise fees and cable-related revenues of $240,000. Or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. Article 4, apply and accept state and federal grants. See if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to apply for state or federal grants and to expend any monies received as outlined in the appropriate grant application, or to take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. Article 5, Chapter 90 authorization. See if the town will vote to accept and expend any sum or sums of money that may be available from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Department of Transportation for Chapter 90 type construction, improvements, and or reconstruction of public ways and associated equipment, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter contracts relative thereto and appropriate said sum or sums in anticipation of reimbursement from the Commonwealth, and take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. Article 6, fair share funds. See if the town will vote to accept and expend any fair share of amendment funds that may be available from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for construction, improvements, and or reconstruction of public ways and associated equipment, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into contract or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. Article 7. See if the town will vote to authorize the town treasurer with the consent of the Board of Selectmen to borrow money from time to time in anticipation of the revenue for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2026, in accordance with the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 4, and to issue a note or notes as may be given for a period of less than 1 year in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 17, or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. Article 8. See if the town will vote to authorize the members of the Cemetery Board One, work in the cemeteries and allow the board of selectmen to determine the compensation to be paid to civic members or taking any other action thereon or in relation thereto. Article 9. See if the town will vote to authorize the members of the Recreation Commission to perform work in the park and to allow the board of selectmen to determine the compensation to be paid to said members and take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. Article 10. Authorize library book sales. See if the town will vote to allow the board of library trustees to sell for the sum of $1 the discarded books and periodicals of the Acushnet Public Library to the Friends of the Acushnet Public Library, a non-profit library support group, or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. Hearing no discussion, no articles held, we'll put it to a vote. This will be a simple majority. Excuse me. All those in favor of Articles 3 through 10? Those opposed? Consent agenda Articles 3 through 10 passed unanimously. Article 11. See if the town will vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53, E1/2, to set the limits on the total amounts may be expended in fiscal year 2027 from each of the town's revolving funds established under the Acushnet General Bylaws, Article 21, revolving funds, as set forth below, to take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. I'll read each fund. Public Works Department, $10,000. Conservation Commission, $5,000. Soil Board, $20,000. Parks and Recreation Commission is $12,500. Council on Aging, $45,000. Public Library Trustees, $6,000. Chapter 44 of Mass General Law mandates the reauthorization of maximum expendable amounts annually by town meeting. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town fix the maximum amounts that may be spent during fiscal year 2027 for the revolving funds established for certain departments, boards, committees, agencies, or offices in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53, E1/2, as described and printed in the warrant.
Second.
Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee recommended passage of this article unanimously.
Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of Article 11? Those opposed? Article 11 passes unanimously. Article 12. Fiscal year 2027 capital budget and free cash articles. After certification by the Mass Department of Revenue, the balance of free cash available total $335,388.05. Board of Selectmen is proposing the following expenditures to be funded from free cash. Article 2, we already approved the $6.79. I will now read Articles 12, 13, and 14 individually. And any free cash funds remaining will carry over the next year. Article 12 is quite lengthy. I'm going to paraphrase it. We've had the full text in front of you. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a transfer from free cash the sum of $25,000 to fund the Youth Employment Service Program. Participation in this program is limited to residents of the town. They'll be paid at a rate of $15 an hour, not to exceed $4,000 in any calendar year. They will be subject to state and federal tax deductions. Participants shall be selected for participation in the program on a first come, first served basis. This program was a new program in 2024, focusing on youth employment. This is designed to instill work ethic while providing financial and social benefits to resident youth, including the co-op program for Acushnet Old Colony students. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator,
You jumped over Article 12.
I did, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Article 2 was to pay previous bills for $6.79. And then you jumped to the next.
I'm sorry. Well, we're here at Article 13, let's vote on Article 13.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote Article 13 is printed in the warrant and to fund said appropriation transfer from free cash the sum of $25,000.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee recommends passage of this article unanimously.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of Article 13? Those opposed? Article 13 passes unanimously. Sorry for the error, folks. Worst mistake I ever made. Article 12, MS4 Consultant Services. See if the town will vote to transfer to free cash or otherwise provide the sum of $25,131.26 for the Board of Selectmen to fund fiscal year 2027 engineering consultant services for compliance with the general permit for discharges from the municipal separate stormwater system, MS4, mandated reporting and filing of associated documents, or take any other action thereon in relation thereto. The MS4 general permit permits cities and towns within the Commonwealth to operate a municipal stormwater system. It's regulated by the Environmental Protection Agency. It means that residents, businesses, developers, and industrial facilities shall only discharge clean water. The EPA has annual reporting and testing requirements that require municipalities to engage engineering firms and expert consultants to assist in complying with these requirements. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move the town transfer from free cash the sum of $25,131.26 to fund the cost of fiscal year 2027 engineering consultant services for compliance with the general permit for discharges from the municipal separate stormwater system, mandated reporting and filing of associated documents.
Second.
Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee voted to approve this article unanimously.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of Article 12? Those opposed? Article 12 passes unanimously. Article 14, fiscal year 27 capital budget. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a transfer of $285,250 from available free cash for any or all the following capital improvement projects and purchases. Take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. Again, I'll read each line item. If you want to discuss, stay hold. We'll return to health items when all have been read. You need not to identify yourself until we return to any health items. Fire department. New turnout gear, not to exceed $65,000. Current set is over 10 years old and not compliant with certification. Police, replace the 911 recording system, not to exceed $13,250. Current system is not compliant with state and federal requirements, including detention periods and secure access control. Police, replace firearms, holsters, ammunition, and provide training, not to exceed $35,000. Current firearms are malfunctioning, and associated equipment and ammunition needs to correspond to the new firearms. Police, purchase of 7 new automated external defibrillators, AEDs, and associated equipment, not to exceed $12,000. The current equipment is outdated and not able to pass certification. Police, purchase an equipment when police cruiser unmarked, not to exceed $65,000. This is an annual cruiser purchase. School department, repair the boilers in both buildings, maintenance, not to exceed $95,000. Present boilers are in a state of disrepair, for a total of $285,250 from free cash. This article funds the various departmental capital projects and equipment purchase. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move Article 14 as printed in the warrant and to fund all items by transferring $285,250 from free cash.
Second.
Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee voted to approve this article unanimously.
I didn't have any discussion. There's no further discussion. We'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of Article 14? Those opposed? Article 14 passes unanimously.
With opposition, Mr. Moderator.
Sorry, one opposition. Article 15. Transfer of prior unused health insurance appropriation to the Health Insurance Stabilization Fund. See if the town will vote pursuant to Chapter 40, Section 5B of the Mass General Laws to fund the Health Insurance Stabilization Fund created for the purpose of paying for future costs associated with employee health insurance and health reimbursement accounts. And the transfer from Article 11 of the June 2024 town meeting the sum of $28,118.85, and Article 9 of the November 2025 town meeting the sum of $10,179.77, for a total sum of $38,298.62 to the said stabilization fund, or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. To be a simple majority vote, this would transfer remaining funds earmarked for health insurance funding from 2 prior years' articles to the stabilization fund to increase the health insurance reserve to $269,925.26, thus increasing the fund closer to the Commonwealth's recommended amount. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote Article 15 is printed in the warrant and to transfer funds from Article 11 of the June 2024 town meeting the sum of $28,118.85, and Article 9 of the November 2025 town meeting the sum of $10,179.77 for a total sum of $38,298.62 to the Health Insurance Stabilization Fund.
Second.
Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee recommends this article unanimously, and I would also like to note that the Commonwealth recommends that we keep approximately 2 quarters worth of health insurance funding in the stabilization account.
Thank you, Dr. Boucher. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of Article 15? Those opposed? Article 15 passes unanimously. Article 16. funding the current engine 2 ban, that stands for bond anticipation note. See if the town will vote to transfer from available funds, the EMS reserve receipts account, or file for, accept, and expend grant or grants, and on matching funds provided by grants, or otherwise provide a sum of $200,000 to make a principal payment to the ban for the recently acquired engine 2, or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. This will be a simple majority vote. This will authorize this year's payment of the short-term bond anticipatory note that was utilized to purchase engine 2 from the EMS reserve receipts account. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote Article 16 is printed in the warrant and to transfer funds from the EMS reserve receipts account the sum of $200,000 to make a payment to the ban for recently acquired engine 2.
I have a second.
Second.
Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee voted to approve this article unanimously.
Discussion. There are none, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of Article 16? Those opposed? Article 16 passes with opposition. If you please, if you vote in opposition to anything, fully extend your hand because I miss it, as you know, sometimes. Article 17, transfer of funds for repair and maintenance. See if the town will vote to transfer from the EMS reserve receipts account the amount of $25 for the purpose of repairing and maintenance of department vehicles, equipment, facilities, and associated equipment, subject to a vote by the Board of Selectmen, or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. This, again, would be a simple majority vote. This transfers limited funds from the EMS reserve receipts account to a repair and maintenance fund for minor repairs to department vehicles, equipment, and facilities. Expenditures from this fund would require approval of the Board of Selectmen. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote Article 17 as printed in the warrant.
Second.
Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee recommends passage of this article unanimously.
Any discussion?
Mr. Moderator, just so town meeting knows, EMS reserve receipt account is in taxation. It's a revenue line item that's brought in from ambulance funds from our fire EMS department. So it's just taken from their retained earnings and putting it here for future costs of repairs. It's not taxation.
Thank you, Mr. Gasper. Any further discussion? If not, let's put it to a vote. All those in favor of Article 17? Those opposed? Article 17 passes unanimously. Article 18. Transfer remaining funds from Article 13 of the annual town meeting, June 17, 2024. Fine. See if the town will vote to transfer from the remaining available unexpended funds originally appropriated in Article 13 of the June 17, 2024 town meeting, a sum or sums of money not to exceed $3,026.15 to line item number 010-2220-524200, repair and maintenance of vehicles, which is currently in deficit for the Acushnet Fire and EMS Department, or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. Simple majority to pass. This is a reallocation of prior capital expense article earmarked for the fire department and transfer said funds to offset the current fiscal year 26 fire deficit. So I have a motion.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote Article 18 is printed in the warrant.
I have a second.
Second.
Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee voted to approve this article unanimously.
Any discussion? There are none, put it to a vote. All those in favor of Article 18? Those opposed? Article 18 passes unanimously. Article 19. Transfer remaining funds from Article 22 of the annual town meeting, June 16, 2025. See if the town will vote to transfer from the remaining unexpended available funds originally appropriated in Article 22 of the June 16, 2025 town meeting, the portion designated to the fire department. The purchase and installation of a new compressor for the filling of SCBA bottles, that stands for self-contained breathing apparatus. A sum of sums of money not to exceed $15,000. The line item 010-2220-524200, repair and maintenance vehicles. And transfer a sum of sums of money not to exceed $11,966. The line item number 010-220-55000 medical supplies, which are currently in deficit for the Acushnet Fire and EMS Department, or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. This will take a simple majority vote. This is a reallocation of a prior capital expense article earmarked for the fire department and transfer said funds to offset the current fiscal year 26 fire deficit. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote Article 19 is printed in the warrant.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee recommended passage of this article unanimously.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favor of Article 19? Those opposed? Article 19 passes unanimously. Article 20. Collective bargaining, AFSCME, stands for the Association of State, Federal, Municipal Employees. See if the town will vote to approve and fund the memorandum of agreement amending the 3-year collective bargaining agreement between the town of Acushnet and AFSCME Council 93, or take any other action thereon. This will be a simple majority. This will approve the funding of the MOA that amends and extends the 3-year collective bargaining agreement with AFSCME Council 93, clerical unit, library unit, maintenance and custodian, and dispatch units for another 3 years. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote Article 20 as printed in the warrant and to confirm any appropriations to be made as part of the operating budget set forth in Article 26 to fund the first year and or fiscal year 2027 cost items contained in the new collective bargaining agreement contingent upon the union ratifying the collective bargaining agreement within 30 days of the vote. Second.
Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee voted to approve this article unanimously.
Take a simple majority. All those in favor? Those opposed? Article 20 passes unanimously. Article 21 is my understanding. This is the collective bargaining with the International Association of Firefighters. It's my understanding they have not ratified any agreement, so I need a motion to postpone indefinitely.
Mr. Moderator, I make a motion to postpone indefinitely.
Second.
Any discussion? There are none, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor? Those opposed? Article 21, postponed indefinitely, unanimous. Article 22, collective bargaining with the United Steelworkers. This is the same situation, folks. There is no ratified agreement. So I will need a motion.
Mr. Moderator, I'll make a motion to postpone indefinitely.
Second.
Any discussion? No discussion, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of Article 22? Those opposed? Article 22 passes unanimously, postponed, rejected. Article 23, this is a lengthy article. I'm going to paraphrase this, but essentially it permits people, retired police officers to work details who have not reached 70 years of age. I will read what I consider the salient points. See if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to file with the General Court a petition for special legislation to allow the appointment of retired police officers who have not reached 70 years of age to serve as special police officers to perform police details or any police duties arising from police details. Section 1. Retired police officers shall have been regular full-time police officers who voluntarily retire. No further deduction shall be made from the irregular compensation of such retired police officers. The special police officer shall provide certification to the town they are covered by personal health insurance and shall pass a medical examination by a physician chosen by the town, the cost of which shall be borne by the special police officer. Section 2. They shall comply with all requirements of Chapter 16 of the General Laws with regard to maintaining certification and good standing with the Massachusetts Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission and comply with all annual in-service and other training. Section 3. They will have the power to make arrests and perform other police functions as do regular police officers of the town of Acushnet. Section 4. They'll be reappointed annually subject to removal by the Board of Selectmen at any time with 14 days written notice. Section 5. They shall be subject to the rules and regulations of the police department with restrictions on the type of detail assignments, requirements regarding medical exams, training, firearms qualifications and licensing, uniforms and equipment, all at no cost to the town. Section 6. They will be sworn before the town clerk in Acushnet. Section 7. They shall be eligible for assignment to any detail subject to provisions of any collective bargaining agreement then in effect between the town and the police union. Section 8. This shall not entitle special police officers to assignment to any detail. They would be paid the detail rate applicable to regular full-time officers, but not be entitled to any other town benefits. Section 9. They shall be subject to the limitations on hours worked to retired town employees under paragraph E of section 91, chapter 32 of the general laws. Section 10. This act will take effect upon its passage. This will take a simple majority. The town has more opportunities for police details and officers to fill them. Filling the details with retired police officers as special police officers is better for the town, since retired officers from the Acushnet are familiar with the town and its roadways. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote Article 23 as printed in the warrant.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee recommends passage of this article unanimously.
Any discussion?
Mr. Moderator,
Yes, Mr. Gaspar.
well, I'll let this gentleman, if he's coming to the podium, to ask a question first.
Tim Mason, 649 Middle Road.
Can you get into the microphone?
Operationally, it says that there are more details than we have detail officers. Are those filled from the county or are they just unfilled? How does that work?
So the reason why the Board of Selectmen and the towns put this article forward is because the outside detail rate is much higher than what we call a town detail rate inside the collective bargaining agreement. And because of the demands of overtime and things of the like and what the officers are taking, the higher detail rate, and it's getting harder and harder for the town to fill town detail rates. You'll see these so-called flaggers out on the road. And the Board of Selectmen and a lot of municipalities in different towns are moving in this direction to give the benefit to our retired police officers from the town the opportunity to continue working details to save taxpayers money and also provide a safer road construction when we have a police officer on duty versus a flagger on duty. So it's due to a few different things, items that are going on, but May 22nd, 2023, town meeting approved the call firefighter to continue his age through 65 through 70. So we all believe that it would be okay if town meeting approved that. We didn't see any harm in having a retired police officer, as long as, and this article is pretty extensive in its description, with the approval of the police chief and all certifications are met and they're in good health, and then approval, annual appointment by the Board of Selectmen. And we did the annual appointment for a reason. We didn't just want to blanket 5-year appointment and then something happened, God forbid, to somebody's health and they were out there doing something. So it's under the police chief's jurisdiction in the Board of Selectmen to do an annual appointment, and a recommendation would come from the police chief to make sure all compliance with certifications are still at hand, and they're responsible to pay for their own certifications. So we believe it's in the taxpayers' best interest to approve this article. All we're trying to do is save the taxpayers a little bit of money because flaggers are higher than the detail rate as well. And then when we're stuck hiring them, we're paying them a higher rate than a town detail rate. So we thought it would go pretty well with the taxpayers, and that's why we decided to do it.
Richard, 29 Lane. It doesn't specifically say so in here that these are Acushnet officers. Does that wording need to be in this warrant just so we can be sure that it is our town's retired officers? Or is there a possibility we would hire from a different town for their retired officer?
I didn't hear you. I don't know if it's your microphone. You're maybe a little bit too close to it, Mr. Rocha, but
Well, I'm just wondering, since this article doesn't specifically say it's implied, but it doesn't state that it is retired Acushnet officers, because I didn't see it in any of the wording, does that have to be in there? I mean, this makes total sense, but it's nice to have a clear article.
Mr. Roach, I believe somewhere in here it said they had previously served as police officers in Acushnet.
Okay.
Whether they live in Acushnet.
No, I mean, just, right. If it's in there, great, thank you.
See if I can find it.
I'll get back to you in a second. Mr. Rocha, are you implying that you would only want retired Acushnet police officers to be able to do details at Acushnet? Because right now, the way the call goes out and the officers get memo, it does go out to our officers first, but if they can't be filled, it goes out to other officers. I believe that if it's declined from outside agencies, meaning outside town officers to take that detail, then we are responsible to call in flaggers. In some situations, we've done road work without flaggers or police officers. So are you trying to make it stringent so that we couldn't use outside retired police officers between the age of 65 and 70?
I'm not, just want clarity in the language. And obviously, we prefer people who had been officers in this town. And a retired officer from somewhere nearby is certainly going to be a cheaper option than a flagger like you were just talking about. So I'm not saying that I don't want that, I'm just saying clear language.
Mr. Rocha, I think it may imply it under the reason. but it doesn't specifically state.
Okay.
It says filling in with retired police officers is better since retired Acushnet officers are familiar with the town
Right, that's why I said
and it's implied.
it is.
Mr. Moderator, just for a point of clarity, if you go back to the earlier part of the article, it also does say recommendations from the police chief appointed by the Board of Selectmen. So ultimately, what it would come down to is how many people between 65 and 70 applied to actually actively do this. So if we get 5 or 6 people from Acushnet that are retired that want to do this, then I think we'd be in good shape with just the Acushnet officers. But if we only get 1 or 2, and we need that extra, if somebody from Rochester, Freetown, Fairhaven, we still have the availability to appoint them as special officers with this article the way it's written.
Is there any other discussion? This will take a simple majority for passage. Hearing no discussion, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of Article 23? Those opposed? Article 23 passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Article 24, funding the Special Education Reserve Fund. See if the town will vote to accept the provisions of the Mass General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 13E, or any amendments thereto, and in accordance with such law, transfer funds potentially available from the fiscal year 26 Acushnet School Department funds to the School Special Education Reserve Fund, so that the reserve fund does not exceed 2% of the annual net school spending of the district. Reserve funds be utilized in accordance with the Section 13E upcoming fiscal years to pay without further appropriation or unanticipated or unbudgeted costs of special education and recovery high school programs, out-of-district tuition and transportation, and take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. This would take a simple majority to pass. This allows the town to reserve for future special education purposes amounts equivalent to receipts received from Fairhaven and New Bedford for out-of-district special education tuitions or other funds as appropriate. The monies in this fund cannot be expended from the School Special Education Reserve Fund without the approval of both the school committee and the Board of Selectmen. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote Article 24 is printed in the warrant.
Second.
Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee voted to approve this article unanimously.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of Article 24? Those opposed? Article 24 passes unanimously. Article 25, Community Preservation Fund. See if the town will vote to appropriate a reserve from fiscal year 2027 Community Preservation Fund estimated annual revenues in the amounts recommended by the Community Preservation Committee for committee administrative expenses, preservation projects, and other expenses for fiscal year 2027 as follows. These are all estimated revenues. Administrative expenses, $13,000. Historic Resources Reserve, $26,000. Community Housing Reserve, $26,000. Open Space Reserve, $26,000. And the undesignated balance of $85,000 for a total of $176,000. I'll now go through the project request by department. Town administrator, administrative reasons, $13,000. The beautification committee for town buildings from undesignated balance, $5,000. 50th National Anniversary Parade, these costs would include public safety expenses from the undesignated balance, $10,000. Repair roofs on the town hall and parting ways building from the undesignated balance, $47,500. Historical Commission to repair, replace, and paint the exterior of the Long Clay Museum. Excuse me. $17,594. Repair, replace, and paint hallway to the second floor, ceiling, and wall of the Long Clay Museum. Historic source of funds, $4,200. And the last Historic Commission, replace the ceiling in the apartment and paint 4 rooms of the Long Clay Museum from the undesignated balance, $28,000. I had to question myself. I didn't know we had an apartment in Long Clay Museum, but I was told that at one time, we had the chairman of the Historical Commission here. Correct me if I'm wrong, Pauline. I was told at one time that to pay for teachers' services, they were allowed to stay in that apartment. Is that correct? Anyway, I went to that school, believe it or not, when it was a school, and I never knew there was an apartment there. Anyway, it's a total of $125,294. This will take a simple majority to pass. This ensures that the Acushnet community preservation accounts are compliant with the CPA Act, which requires that a certain portion of CPA funds be set aside for open space, community housing projects, and historical projects. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move the town with the recommendation of the Community Preservation Committee reserve from fiscal year 2027 Community Preservation Fund from fiscal year 27 estimated revenues $13,000 for administrative expenses and fiscal year 27 estimated revenues $26,000 for historic resource reserve. From fiscal year 27 estimated revenues $26,000 for community housing reserve. From fiscal year 27 estimated revenues $26,000 for open space reserve. And from CPC unrestricted revenues $85,000 to unrestricted reserves. And further to fund the recommended funding sources, the recommended community preservation project set forth in the CPC table and other expenses as printed in the warrant.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee recommends this article unanimously. I'd also like to give some recognition to Ms. Pauline Texera on the Historical Commission. She puts in countless hours for our town and does a fantastic job. Thank you, Pauline.
And if I may, due to her efforts in large part and others, the Perry Hill Church just got accepted on the National Register of Historic Places. Thank you, Pauline. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of Article 25? Those opposed? Article 25 passes unanimously. Article 26. This is the budget article process. I'll take a motion for the budget as a whole. I'll then read each budget dollar's total figure by department. I'm not going to read every line item. They're in the detailed handouts made available to you. Again, if you want to discuss the budget, please raise your hand and say hold when I read that budget. We'll return to all held budgets once all those budgets have been read. And again, you don't need to identify yourself to hold the budget, but prepare to comment on it when we return. Article 26. See if the town will vote on the provisions of the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 41, Section 108, or any amendments thereto, to fix the salaries of all elected officials and to fund collective bargaining agreements for fiscal year 2027, and raise and appropriate any sum or sums therefore, and further raise and appropriate any sum or sums of money for the maintenance of the several departments of the town, and for other necessary charges, in accordance with the amount recommended by the Finance Committee as shown in the fiscal year 27 column of the warrant, or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. This again will take a simple majority. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator,
I move the town vote pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 41, Section 108, or any amendments thereto, to fix the salaries of all elected officials, all officers, and all employees appointed or employed, to fund the collective bargaining agreements, and for the maintenance of several departments, and for other necessary charges in accordance with the amounts recommended by the Finance Committee as printed in the warrant, and to fund said appropriations, transfer from available funds, and raise and appropriate, and not to exceed as follows. Taxation, state aid, and local receipts, $37,279,231. EMS reserve receipts, $580,000. Water surplus fund, $150,000. Debt premium, $1,550. Gulf sewer enterprise fund offset, $145,570. Other sources of funds, zero. The total, $38,156,351.
Thank you, Mr. Gaspar. Do I have a second?
Second.
Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee voted to approve this article unanimously.
Okay, folks, now I'll begin coursing through the budgets. Reserve Fund, these are fiscal year 2027 requests, $100,000. Town meeting elections, $32,851. Moderator, $875. Elected, $229,310. Finance Committee, $2,900. Accountant, $267,800. Assessors, $176,066. Treasurer Collector, $293,217. Town Council, $100,000. Technology, $254,587. Town Clerk, $161,197. Board of Registrars, $39,462. Conservation Commission, $81,371. Soil Board, $15,800. Planning Board, $73,078. Board of Appeals, $6,655. Town Buildings, $132,435. For a general government total of $2,067,604. Police Department, $3,100,060. Fire EMS, $1,303,963. Inspectional Services, $170,477. Sealer Weights and Measures, $2,219. Emergency Management, $17,900. Animal Control, $64,180. Forestry, $18,000. For a public safety total, $4,676,799. Education, Old Colony Regional, $3 million. Cushing School Department, $17,139,645. Total Cushing School Department, $17,139,000. Well, I got that though. Education total, $20,793,269. Public Works, Highway, $988,697. Snow and Ice, $110,000. Street Lighting, $27,350. CMAPs, $1,248,500. Cemetery, $7,325. Public Works total, $2,381,872. Water Reserve Fund, $60,000. Public Works Water, $1,855,054. Water Debt Service, $206,992. For a water total of $2,122,026. Public Works and Water total, $4,503,918. Human Services, Board of Health, $162,136. Council on Aging, $136,922. Veterans, $142,397. For a Human Services total of $441,455. Library, $309,889. Recreation, $25,225. Parks Department, $49,967. Historical Commission, $7,660. Miscellaneous, $12,000. For a culture and recreation total of $404,741. Regional government, $3,861. Debt principal, $250,000. Long-term debt interest, $77,575. Short-term interest, $0. Debt service total, $327,575. Joint benefit accounts, pensions, $2,173,760. Insurance, $2,763,369. Non-departmental total, $4,937,129. For a general fund total, $38,156,351. And now go back to the first held item, the Colony region.
Hi, Tim Mason, 649 Middle Road again. The Old Colony budget has been increasing pretty steadily. And this year, I know we had a really large chunk of it come back to us. Is this something that's going to keep happening? Is there a plan in place? Has Old Colony sort of said why what's going on?
What was the last part of your question? I heard at the beginning about Old Colony's budget going up pretty substantially for the last several years.
Is this something we can keep expecting from them, or do they have a rationale for it? What are our options here in terms of dealing with that? Because the school community for kids that we teach here in town can't sustain it. So I want to know if what the information is that I'm not getting as a public taxpayer that lets me know what's really going on here.
Well, I don't know if we have all night for me to sit down with you, my friend, and explain the Old Colony situation. I mean, at the regional school, they try to do their best based on what they feel their needs are. I know there's a lot of people that have heard me speak about the Old Colony budget and how much it's gone over the last decade or so. You know, I always tell people, we don't have a revenue problem, you have a spending problem. And that's really what it comes down to, because the town only has anywhere between $800,000 and $900,000 a year to balance the overall town's budget. A couple of years ago, it was actually 2 years ago, I told the administration from Old Colony, their ask was somewhere around 500 and change, and I told them, I said, you do realize right now what your ask is the whole Prop 2.5 levy increase of the town of Acushnet, and we do have our own public schools. And I just most recently, knowing where we were at with the school's budget and what they were told, I think the increase was like 175. My board we had a conversation about the local school's budget, and we worked very hard and we raised revenues to what I'll call levels that are uncomfortable for myself. And we decreased several budgets as much as we could. We had $110,000 savings in our CMAS, trash and recycling, all and things of the like. Old Colony has done what they can. This year, the $410,000, so estimated with the 13 additional students, just on that number, based on the $17,000 roughly it costs to educate a student at Old Colony, just those 13 additional students is roughly $222,000 of the $410,000. That aside, if we're still a third of the school, it's still up $600,000. And I just think that we have a lot of work to do with Old Colony, with the regional school committee to try to discuss, some of the increases that they've seen and the reasons why. It doesn't help when they presented their budget in the Board of Selectmen and then and they're in tough fiscal times given market rate adjustments for COLAs for administrative people. Quite honestly, knowing what our public schools and what we've done on the town side are going through, I didn't exactly like those comments coming from the administration, but they got their vote from other member towns, and I just extended an olive branch in my last selectmen's meeting with my colleagues to the 4 other member towns, boards of selectmen, to have a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen here in Acushnet, to talk about their budgets and talk about the next steps for a high school or repairs of the high school. But we did do everything we could this year to work with the Acushnet School Committee and get them an allotment of money that was better than that $175 they originally told, because quite honestly, I look at a 4th grade high school and I look at a K through 8 elementary and 4th middle school, and I just can't wrap my head around how I'm giving a 4th grade school more money than I'm giving an 8th grade school, right? So, I think a lot of us share that sentiment. Colonies, they've done what they've done, and, whether we need to bring them in and rein them in a little bit, I think that's for future dialogue, but I will give them, I don't want to give them too much credit with the increase in their budget, but just keep in mind $222,000 of the town of Acushnet's assessment was pertaining to 13 additional new students.
Thank you for that information, thank you.
You're welcome.
As I know, I'm looking through here, and a lot of staffing and a lot of departments have taken no increases in 3 or 4 years, so I feel like we're being held hostage by a regional school system. So I just want to get that out there.
So I'd like to make a comment on that. We just cut 14 positions this past year, 6 last year and 8 the year before. That's 28 positions over a 3-year period. So when I hear a comment like we need to rein them in, I think there's some truth in that, because we in this town in the school system are being decimated and we're feeling the pain, and I don't see them feeling very much pain, and so something has to be done. Otherwise, we're going to be having the same conversation again next year.
Agreed.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes.
if I could just chime in one more little note. At our last meeting with the administration of Old Colony, Selectman Gasper, Selectman Rosendes, and myself requested that Old Colony would go back to the drawing board for their budget. And they declined us because they had been through the process quite extensively. It did start a little later than normal. But I did make a comment, and I mean this comment. I asked how many positions were going to be lost at Old Colony, and I was told this year none, if anything, 1. And I made one simple comment. I said, soon enough, we're not going to have a school in Acushnet to send people to high school. And I just want the people in this room to know that part of the reason why town meeting was delayed was because myself and my 2 colleagues here put our foot down and scraped every single nickel out of every barrel we could in this town to get as much as we possibly could, because I truthfully don't feel that giving Acushnet Public Schools less than Old Colony 3 years in a row is acceptable. And I want to commend Selectman Gasper, the gentleman to my left, for hunkering down and finding more revenue that we didn't know existed. And he spent every single waking hour at town meeting over the last month and a half, if not longer. And if anybody could find it, he could. And I just want to share some appreciation for Selectman Gasper for getting it done.
Thank you, Mr. Hinckley.
Is there any other discussion about Old Colony?
On the next one, too.
Okay. Question School Department.
Mr. Moderator, can I address Mr. Hood for a quick question of clarification?
Yes.
Okay. So, the number in the request for 2027 in this budget, and which, we talked at the school committee meeting, which option is this? Is this the one that we talked about with all of the cuts, or is this a little bit more added back?
So the initial proposal was for a constraint-based budget that included about 8 cuts. That was when we had basically no funding yet from the town. The town came forward with, I think, approximately $450,000. In order to have a constraint-driven budget was about $1 million, so when we got 450, we had to go back and find another 550 worth of cuts to balance that. So that's essentially.
That's more cuts.
Correct. So it turned out altogether to be 14 cuts.
Right, and so just to echo Mr. Hinckley's thoughts, at a certain point we're going to end up with no school to teach children and to then send to Old Colony. Are there any options, gentlemen, so the selectmen, finance committee, for us to appropriate money at all to add to the school committee's budget tonight, or is this it?
This is basically it without crushing the taxpayers of Acushnet, and it's highly unadvisable to go after any other source of funds because one-time revenue should never be used to balance the budget. That's why the Board of Selectmen, with our administration, made every effort alongside of the Finance Committee to do what we did and get the approval with all the adjusted budgets that we did, is to get them a sum of money. Think about even the ask from the Acushnet Public Schools. Again, I'm going to go back to the conversation I've been having for over a decade in the joint meetings with Finance Committee, School Committee, and the Board of Selectmen. The town has roughly $800,000 to $900,000 in revenue a year to balance the town's budget, which includes the Acushnet School Department, Old Colony, all fixed costs, and all of our public safety divisions, and every other service that we provide to the taxpayers of Acushnet. I don't know how we went from one year to another. It's a much longer conversation that I need $1 million. I think we could all use $1 million. I can tell you right now, I wish I didn't have to do it, what I did in the amount of time I spent with Mr. Kelly, Mr. Montaigne, our new town administrator, Jamie Lynn Velasquez that's sitting second behind, right alongside of Ms. Labonte, between Sue Delgado and Ms. Labonte as our assistant town accountant, hammering every budget that we could, re-looking at revenue lines. I mean, we're in such a detrimental place right now if we continue to spend. We can manage as long as we spend within our means, right? Just like anybody else's household. But I even had to cut $50,000 from the reserve fund, which is for unforeseen and emergency purposes. That tells you the state of where we were at to try to balance these budgets out and provide the school committee in this school department an additional $275,000 on top of the initial number they were originally given. I didn't attend this year's joint meeting. I had a previous appointment, okay? But when I heard that number, I almost choked. I'm a smart enough man to realize that this Acushnet School Department can't live off $150,000 or $275,000 a year, period. Just ain't gonna happen. I'm also a smart enough man to know that we can't be giving the school department $1 million a year over year, because at some point, all of the people that have children coming here, most of the people that have children coming here won't be able to afford to live in town anymore and have their kids come to this school. So that's why I always stress the importance of everybody working collectively together for a solution to the problem. Sometimes those decisions just aren't easy, right? The rate of increase, not only for school departments, for pensions, health insurance, all our fixed costs, I've been talking about this for decades, my friend. It is unsustainable, okay? Government spending is unsustainable. We all need to realize that, and I appreciate guys like you coming to the podium and having a normal dialogue with all of us folks and making people open up their eyes and going, wow, that's an eye-opener. Maybe we'll get more good people like you at town meeting to share those concerns, my friend, so I appreciate your comments.
Thank you. I think having a state representative here is great because a lot of the issue, I believe, comes from the state education funding, specifically like Chapter 30 needs to be reformed, and there's a lot of funding that has to come from the state level to be able to run a school system. That $1 million should come from the state. It didn't have to come from the Acushnet, and I think we've talked about this. It's where the biggest problem lies, and I just want to make sure everyone else knows about it.
So if you look at the beginning of this book that I wrote, that all the town meeting members here tonight have the same information that I have in the beginning of my book. Mr. Ron Hood, the chairman of the school committee, Mr. Mike Boucher, the chairman of FinCom, and myself as chairman of the Board of Selectmen sent the governor a letter about Chapter 70 funding. The problem with Chapter 70 funding is over the last, I don't know, we'll call it 5 years, just for the sake of my memory right now, we only receive an additional $90,000 a year in funding in Chapter 78, which is basically peanuts. State aid hasn't increased to the level that town funding has increased by a landslide, my friend. So there's a lot of issues there. The one thing that I would caution is the state is not good at holding their word. So if you give the schools more money in state aid, and then somewhere in the near future they go, well, we can't really afford to give state aid, that money's in the school department's budget, and we all know when it's cuts from state aid, whose pocket that's coming out of to make up that offset. And it's all of ours that are sitting in this room today, my friend. There ain't no taking it back once it's being given.
Yeah, or we cut 20 plus teachers either way, right?
The what?
Or we cut 20 plus teachers over the years either way, right? So it's.
I don't think you'll find a soul in this room that's proud of that, my friend.
I agree. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Moderator,
Yes.
if I may, I'll just sum it up like this. Essentially, the irresponsible spending at the state level, looks right through the governor's office. If we had more responsible spending there, we would not be in this position where we don't have enough local aid to support programs that need funding. That is pretty much the bottom line, is it starts at the top and it works its way down to us here at the local level. We've all been saying this for years, myself, Mr. Gaspar, all the select board. We all share the same sentiment when it comes to that. And, something's going to change at some point. We're not going to keep asking the taxpayers, us, we're all taxpayers that sit up here too. There's no way. We're going back to the OC budget, the thing that worried us the most was the operational budget as it sits now. And if the school were to get bigger, that operational budget would increase double. So the math wouldn't work. It won't work without more local aid. That's the bottom line. Thank you.
And I just noticed, folks, that we have a second state rep has joined us. It's Steve Willett is here. Thank you, sir. Is there any other discussion on the budget?
Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
Seeing how you just mentioned state reps, I do want the audience to know that they've been good with working with the current Board of Selectmen. They've listened to our issues that we have. They've helped us just retain $1 million for a Slocum Street project that I just announced from the 2014 Transportation Bond Bill. So our current state reps right now are trying to do what they can. But you got to remember, it's the House of Representatives. There are only 2 individuals within the House of Representatives. So, we got to cut them a little slack right now. Hopefully they'll be able to follow through with some of the asks that the Board of Selectmen and the FinCom's done. And we'll see how we progress over the years. But for right now, I would thank our state reps for their collaboration with the Board of Selectmen.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes.
I'd also like to echo that, and just remind Rep. Sylvia that he will get random text every 3 months to just say Chapter 70 for me until you're out of office.
Yeah, it's to the state rep's credit that after a long day, they take the time to sit here with us to see what's going on at the grassroots level. Thank you, gentlemen. Hearing no further discussion, we'll put it to a vote. This will take a simple majority to pass. All those in favor of Article 26? Those opposed? Article 26 passes with opposition.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Article 27, Sewer Enterprise Fund. See if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money to operate the Sewer Enterprise Fund as shown below. Reserve Fund, $60,000. Salaries, $88,008. Operations and Maintenance, $586,016. Debt service, $75,512. Indirect costs, $21,908, for a total of $831,444. The sum is to be raised as follows. Sewer revenue, $695,932. Sewer retained earnings, $135,512, for a total of $831,444. Or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. This would be a simple majority vote. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote Article 27 is printed in the warrant.
Second.
Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee recommended passage of this article unanimously.
Any discussion, folks? Hearing none, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of Article 27? Those opposed? Article 27 passes unanimously. Article 28, the Golf Club Enterprise Fund. See if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money to operate the Golf Club Enterprise Fund as shown below. Reserve Fund, $100,000. Salaries, $794,650. Operation and maintenance, $853,219. Debt service, $214,800. Indirect costs, $123,662. For a total of $2,086,331. Sum to be raised as follows. Golf Center revenue, $1,771,531. And the golf retained earnings, $314,800. For a total of $2,086,331. Or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. Again, folks, a simple majority. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote Article 28 is printed in the warrant.
Second.
Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee voted to approve this article unanimously. I also want to point out, as is stated, this does not come out of the town's revenue.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of Article 28? Those opposed? Article 28 passes unanimously. Article 29. Golf course retained earnings capital repair funding. See if the town will vote to transfer from the golf course retained earnings a sum not to exceed $100,000 for the purpose of various capital repairs and replacements, including bunker renovation work and/or other necessary and proper expenditures approved by the Board of Selectmen, or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. Simple majority vote here. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote Article 29 is printed in the warrant.
Second.
Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee recommends this article unanimously.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of Article 29? Those opposed? Article 29 passes unanimously. Article 30. This is another lengthy article. I will paraphrase this. To establish a beautification donation fund. See if the town will vote to adopt a general bylaw establishing a beautification donation account for the town for the purpose of receiving and expending donated funds for beautification projects, subject to approval of both the Beautification Committee and the Board of Selectmen for all expenditures, or take any other action relative thereto. Section 1, purpose is to establish a beautification donation account to receive and expend donated funds. Section 2, the purpose of receiving monetary gifts, donations, and contributions from individuals, businesses, and organizations for beautification efforts. 3, the Board of Selectmen shall have the authority to accept donations into the beautification account and it shall be held and administered by the town treasurer. Section 4, the funds are used only for beautification-related purposes, such as landscaping, planting, planters, flower boxes, whiskey barrel, those are empty, I'm sure, seasonal decorations and displays, community cleanup efforts, and the purchase and maintenance of United States and Veterans flags. Section 5, no funds shall be expended unless approved by a majority vote of the Beautification Committee and the Board of Selectmen. Shall not be transferred or used for any other municipal purpose. Section 6, the Board of Selectmen shall adopt written policies governing the administration of this account. Section 7, all expenditures shall comply with the Mass General laws. Section 8, an annual report detailing donations received, expenditures, and completed projects shall be submitted to town meeting by the Board of Selectmen or its designee. Section 9, this bylaw shall take effect upon its adoption by town meeting. Votes, this will take a 2/3 majority to pass. It'll authorize the committee through the establishment of this account to receive and expend donated funds for the beautification project, subject again to approval of both the beautification committee and the Board of Selectmen. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote Article 30 is printed in the warrant to amend the town of Acushnet general bylaws and to establish a beautification donation account to receive and expend donated funds for town beautification projects, subject to approval of both the beautification committee and the Acushnet Board of Selectmen.
Second.
Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee voted to approve this article unanimously.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll put it to a vote. Again, this will take a 2/3 vote for passage. All those in favor of Article 30? Those opposed? Article 30 passes unanimously. Article 31, amend the bylaw. To see if the town will vote to amend the town of Acushnet general bylaws, Article 1, Section 2.2 as follows. The current language, annual election of officers shall be held on the 4th Tuesday in April. Commence July 1, 2024, or at such other time as shall be determined by a vote of the town. One will amend it to the annual town election of officers shall be held on the 1st Tuesday in April, following the Massachusetts Patriots' Day holiday each year, with opening and closing at such hours as may be determined by the Board of Selectmen. Excuse me. After an in-depth review of the upcoming annual election calendars, it was discovered in 2027 and 2030, the election will fall in the school vacation week. Beginning in 2031, it will fall on the week after their vacation. By changing the above language, it will avoid any potential conflict. Again, this will take a 2/3 majority to pass. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote Article 31 is printed in the warrant to amend the town of Acushnet general bylaws, Article 1, Section 2.2, annual town election date from the 4th Tuesday in April to the 1st Tuesday in April following the Massachusetts Patriots' Day holiday.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Anyone here to the comment from the bylaw committee?
Mr. Moderator, technically I'm on the bylaw committee, but I would just like to add a note anyway. Just for clarification for anybody wondering, certain years we run into multiple state and federal primaries, town election. And as you know, our voting location has always been the schools. The only real control we have over any of the elections that we have is our annual town election. So by doing this and lining up with school vacation week, it gives the Acushnet Public Schools an opportunity to not have to close down the school for a full day or modify their professional development calendar. So this is just to give them one extra day where they don't have to get stuck going to school almost to July as often as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Hinckley. Any further discussion? If If not, we'll put it to a vote. Again, this will take a two-thirds vote for passage. All those in favor of Article 31? Those opposed? Article 31 passes unanimously. Article 32, this is another bylaw amendment. The annual town, to see if the town will vote to amend Town of Acushnet General Bylaws, Article 1, Section 2.1 as follows. Article 1, 2.1 states the annual town meeting shall be held on the second Monday of May of each year, or at such other time as shall be determined by a vote of the town. What the amended version is Article 1, Section 2.1 shall be held on the second Monday of May each year for the transaction of business or on any other date as may be determined by the Board of Selectmen. In recent years, the Board of Selectmen has needed to postpone and change the date of town meeting to receive updated financial information from the Commonwealth, and thus to present the balanced budget to town meeting. Again, a bylaw change will take a two-thirds vote. To add a motion.
Mr. Moderator, move the town vote Article 32 as printed in the warrant to amend the Town of Acushnet's General Bylaws, Article 1, Section 2.1, Annual Town Meeting to allow the Board of Selectmen to change the date of town meeting from the second Monday in May to a date determined by the Board.
I have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Here are none, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of Article 32? Those opposed? Again, I'm not sure, I saw someone raise their hand. Article 32 passes by two-thirds with opposition. Article 33, amend general bylaw, Article 8, zoning, section 7.2. Floodplain article. See if the town will vote to amend the Town of Acushnet general bylaws, Article 8, zoning, section 7.2. and floodplain overlay district, or take any other action relative thereto. Essentially, folks, what this is doing is including the floodplain, which was not included before. The state model bylaw did not include these at the previous time of adoption. And I'll read it. All recreational vehicles in A, A1-30, AO, AH, AE zones, B130, BE, and B zones are to be placed on the site. They must be elevated and anchored in accordance with the zone's regulation for foundation and elevation requirements, or be on the site for less than 180 consecutive days, or be fully licensed and highway ready. Again, we're just adding the floodplain zones to these very same requirements. Again, it's a bylaw change, you need a two-thirds majority. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote Article 33 as printed in the warrant to amend the Town of Acushnet General Bylaws, Article 8, zoning, Section 7.2R, in accordance with a list of changes as on file at the town clerk's office, and further yield to the planning board for explanation.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? There is no discussion, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of Article 33? Those opposed? Article 33 passes unanimously. Is there anyone from the bylaw committee that would? Yes. The chairman of the planning board here, or anyone from the planning board that would like to comment on your recommendation?
What article are you referring to, Commissioner?
Article 33.
Mark Francois, future flag, chairman of the planning board voted this unanimously.
Thank you. Article 34.
Well, hold on that, even though it's at the end. We'll just go ahead and discuss it. We'll talk about
What's your motion?
article. You just want to put a line, Mr. Moderator, but because it's an individual article, you can just proceed discussion without after the motion.
Yeah. Mr. Hopper. Mr. Hopper.
Yeah.
No such thing as a whole. What's your pleasure about Article 34?
Just trying to ensure that we have a good discussion on that article.
Well, you'll have the opportunity as we go through the process.
Thank you for your graciousness.
Article 34. See if the town will vote to exclude as provided for in Chapter 135 of the Acts of 2024 municipal administrative buildings, and to the extent permitted by law, the grounds and parking areas thereof from being defined as prohibited areas under Chapter 269, Section 10, thereby allowing possession of a firearm, loaded or unloaded, as defined in Section 121 of Chapter 140 in said buildings, and to the extent permitted by law in said properties, if Chapter 135 of the Acts of 2024 is repealed by the voters of the Commonwealth in November 2026, or otherwise struck down by a court of competent jurisdiction. Excuse me. This vote shall be rendered null and void or take any other action relative thereto. I need to preface any comments by saying this was a citizen's petition, and both the article and its explanation was written by the citizen's petitioner. But I'll explain it as written here by the petitioner. It seeks to restore the ability of law-abiding licensed citizens to carry firearms on municipal property, consistent with the practice in Acushnet for over 150 years prior to the enactment of Chapter 135 of the Acts of 2024. By adopting this exemption, the town exercises its local authority to ensure that vetted citizens are not criminalized while conducting business in town facilities, including but not limited to the town hall, library, or town park. This does not impact state or federal prohibitions in schools or polling places while actively being used for voting, and aims to uphold constitutional rights while prioritizing public safety. It includes a sunset clause if the 2024 is repealed in November 2026. This exemption automatically expires as it will no longer be necessary. The petitioner, Mr. Alex Knox, is here to present the motion.
Alexander Knox, 90 Perry Hill Road. I move that the town vote Article 34 as on file at the town clerk's office and as printed in the warrant, provided that the word by the law be removed and replaced with the word vote.
Second.
Okay, I'm going to open this up to discussion.
Mr. Moderator, neighbors, for over 150 years, Acushnet was a town where a licensed citizen or a retired law enforcement officer could go about their daily business without fear of an accidental criminal charge. Recent state mandates changed that overnight, turning our municipal properties into prohibited areas by default, with severe felony penalties. This is a direct strike against our constitutionally protected rights. Simply labeling a building a prohibited area provides a false sense of security. These designations only disarm the vetted, law-abiding citizens and retired officers in this room, while doing absolutely nothing to stop a determined criminal. They do not stop threats, they merely create soft targets. To be absolutely clear, I am not encouraging vigilantism or suggesting citizens take the law into their own hands. I am advocating strictly for the fundamental right of personal self-defense. Traditionally, true prohibited locations like courthouses are legally sound because the government provides comprehensive security, including armed guards and metal detectors to compensate for removing a citizen's right to self-defense. The town is not providing that level of security at our administrative buildings. Without it, these mandates simply leave law-abiding residents entirely defenseless. However, the state left us one way, the local option. Section 10K 2I allows this meeting to vote to exempt our buildings and protect our neighbors. Article 34 exercises that option to restore our rights. It ensures that those paying taxes at town hall or visiting our library are not criminalized by a flawed mandate that ignores our town's 1860 incorporation and long tradition of safety. Furthermore, forcing licensed gun owners and retired officers to constantly unholster and handle firearms in cramped vehicles or on public property just to step onto town property creates a significantly higher risk of an accidental discharge than simply leaving a tool safely secured and hidden in a holster. Keeping a firearm holstered is the gold standard of safety. This article isn't about changing Acushnet, it is about keeping it the same. I ask for your yes vote on Article 34 to protect our neighbors, support our retired law enforcement, and uphold our local authority. Let's send a message that Acushnet stands for constitutional rights. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Knox. John Howcroft, 35 Perry Hill. I have one question for Mr. Knox. I'd like to have the definition of a firearm, loaded or unloaded, as defined in section 121, chapter 140. I'd like to say what kind of firearm are we talking about? Are they sidearms, shotguns, AR-15s, or what are we talking about?
Mr. Moderator.
I'm going to refer that for a legal explanation to our town council.
It would be any legal firearm for which there's the person's properly licensed.
So someone could bring a shotgun, which is illegally, bring a shotgun on town property, say at Coke Park, and just carry that, and it would be legal.
Darren Klein through the moderator. So parks are not actually covered by this exception. It is legal to carry a properly licensed firearm in the park.
So
That's not affected by this article at all.
So that answers one question. I'd like to refer to policy, the town workforce violence policy, passed by the Board of Selectmen, I think in 2014. 2014. And this policy establishes the standards and procedures and safeguards. I won't read the whole thing. They encourage and foster a work environment that is characterized by respect and healthy conflict resolution. Reduce the potential for violence in and around the workplace. The policy goes on to read, such behavior, they talk about behavior, such behavior can include not only acts of physical violence, but also oral and written statements, gestures, or expressions that communicate a direct or indirect threat of physical harm. I go on to say, intimidation is engaging in actions that include but not limited to stalking of behavior intended to frighten, coerce, and induce arrest.
Mr. Howcroft.
Go ahead. Prohibit prohibited behaviors in the policy. So section 5. And the second one is use, possess, or threaten to use a weapon during the time covered by this policy, even if the employee has a license to carry a firearm. I'm using the term possess. And this is what the workplace violence policy passed by the Board of Selectmen mandate. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, this article applies to the residents of this town, and I'm sure if they're in a municipal building, they're gonna protect anybody that's in it, because.
Thank you, Mr. Resendes. Yes, sir.
Nathan Williams, 84 Main. So, you know, when we come to town meeting, we're talking about relevant issues to the town. And I would pose to the select board what issue is being resolved with this. You know, the Second Amendment allows for exemptions of buildings. We know that courthouses, there are a number of buildings that are exempt from firearm being brought onto the premises. And I don't know of anybody being criminalized or being arrested for bringing a firearm onto the premises of the town office or the library.
Sir, if I may, could you please state loudly your name and address? Because
Oh yeah. Nathan Polimus, 84 Main Street.
how do you spell the last name?
Polhemus.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. So, you know, social science, we talk a lot about numbers in this room, about budgeting. Social science says that the more firearms in the public space, the less safe that space is. Period. The proliferation of firearms does not make the people in that space safer. Going against that is just a delusional fantasy of people who think that they would be the good guy with a gun. That doesn't actually play out in real life. So I would just ask the select board again, what problem is being solved? We are here to fix issues for the town of Acushnet. This doesn't, to me, fix any issue unless there's somebody being held in a cell somewhere because they brought a firearm to the library.
Mr. Moderator, so one of the beautiful things about town meeting in Acushnet is you can fill out something called the citizens petition. So this was not proposed by anybody at this table here. This was a citizen that went through the lawful process to petition town meeting to propose his own article. The Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, and any other review committee, our bylaw review committee, we can review it. We can't make any modifications to the articles. It has to be printed in the warrant as presented. If he gets the required signatures, and once he gets the required signatures, by law, we have to approve it to go on the warrant. So from an outside perspective, what this does solve, and I'm going to break this down to the most simple part of democracy, is somebody went through the proper channels to petition the town, and really that's what it comes down to. Whether you agree with the article or not, ultimately, Mr. Knox proposed an article through the process that the town clerk deemed necessary. Legal reviews it, it goes on the warrant, and we have to present it to town meeting.
That makes total sense. In that case, I would just ask everybody in this room who will be voting to consider science and data as opposed to their fantasies about who they would be with a gun. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, if I may.
Yes, Mr. Boucher.
As a finance committee member, we conduct meetings somewhat regularly in the Board of Selectmen meeting room. Yes, the meeting room is locked. It's got a glass door on it. We live in a society right now where there's some very intolerant people out there. And myself, I have a license to carry. I would feel much more comfortable if I had my firearm with me during a meeting, just in case. I mean, if somebody came in, could easily shoot through that glass door. And if I can protect my finance committee members, myself, from further harm, I think that's a great option to have that we've never had. And the more I thought about it, I'm like, this, you know what, this makes sense. You see some of the craziness on social media. And I'm sorry, I disagree with the previous commenter about fantasy. It's a reality, in my opinion. We see it a lot, and to be able to protect ourselves, and you have the right to shake your head and disagree. That's why we're here talking right now, to have a discussion. It's okay. I'm just giving my take as someone who conducts meetings in a room that is supposed to be safe, but is it really? That's all I'm going to say.
Jesse Ellis, 231 Mount Pleasant Road. So I think while it is very important to have kind of an ongoing discussion among society on the merits of firearms ownership, duly licensed owners of firearms and their right to protect themselves and their families. Ultimately, the thing that stands out to me the most with regards to this particular citizen's petition is removing the possibility, and granted, while the previous speaker may not have any knowledge of any circumstances of somebody being brought up on charges for possessing a firearm in any of the facilities or grounds that are run by the town that are within the scope of this citizen's petition, it's a very real possibility. And it's ultimately it comes down to the discretion of the district attorney who presides over the case. Essentially what can happen is a private citizen who is duly licensed and doing business either in one of these town buildings, is going to the DPW yard, is going to the library, could easily have something as simple as a medical emergency. They could get into an accident in the parking lot, and anything that could cause a police response, which could be anything, like I said, from a medical emergency to another situation. If it became apparent that that person was carrying a firearm that they were duly licensed to carry, it could carry a fine of up to $1,000 and 2.5 years in jail. That's pretty serious, and $1,000 is not nothing, but 2.5 years in jail is a life-altering experience for somebody who has otherwise gone through the very rigorous process of becoming a duly licensed firearms owner in Massachusetts. It's not unthinkable to envision that happening within our own town. By no fault of the individual carrying the firearm, and in many cases, these areas around town, these additional prohibited places that are municipal buildings and grounds, simply aren't harmed. If somebody were to happen into one of those facilities or on the grounds of those facilities, in the parking lots of those facilities, unless they were aware of this change, which, to the petitioner's point and some other speakers, simply hasn't been the case for the past 150 years. They could unknowingly be breaking a law that didn't exist a year and a half ago and find themselves in a truly life-altering experience. For clarity, I am personally a licensed firearm owner. I have my license to carry, and I consider it a significant responsibility to protect myself and my family, and requires a tremendous amount of discipline and training. To think that we're going to drop off my recycling in town and bump into somebody on the way out of the lot and then turn into a jail time sentence for me or anybody else in town is trouble, to say the least. So I would encourage anybody here tonight to vote in favor of exempting our municipal facilities from the prohibited places list. Thank you.
Julie LeBoy, 39 Vernon Road. I am a veteran of the United States Air Force. In order, and I'm proud of that. In the capacity of the Armed Forces as a military member, I had to make legal enlistment. and that oath of enlistment included to swear to protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I do not currently own a firearm. I have my own reasons as to why I don't have one. However, that is a God-given right for me, given to us by our Constitution. And the Constitution states very clearly, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The current law infringes on our Constitution. If I want to have the right to have a firearm and be on a public space, I should have the right to protect myself.
Nathan Boydas, Katie Remain, again.
After your presentation, sir, we're gonna put this to a vote.
That's perfectly fine. So I just want to say, I'm disagreeing on the data, not on the right to bear arms, right? So your right to bear arms is granted to you through the Second Amendment, but we are allowed to restrict that in certain spaces, and it's for the benefit of people in those spaces to restrict those firearms in those spaces. And it's just important to understand that those restrictions are there for a reason, and that the data doesn't comply with this imaginary scenario that we're putting up to a vote. I would rather vote as accordance to reality and what actually happens, as opposed to some scenario that we can think up in our heads. And I could think up a budget that works better for the school district, and I could think of a bunch of scenarios where we could fund, we could take funding from certain things and put it towards education, and I could imagine a bunch of things. It doesn't mean that it's the reality. So the reality is, the more firearms proliferated in a space, the less safe that space is. And that's the data. Thank you.
Now you get up after I said we'll put it to a vote. I'll go ahead and I'd like to hear your position.
Tom Orlowski, I'm a licensed firearm instructor, licensed by the state police. Just to give you a brief explanation of how this works. If someone wants a firearm, they will come to myself or another instructor, go through a test, qualify and arrange with them. When they submit the application, the state does a background check on this person. If they pass the background check, now the local police department has the ability to approve or disapprove that license. The person goes through it, they get their license, they go to a gun shop, buy a gun. They go through another check, the next check, the FBI, the background check. So now the person's gone through all these checks, has his gun, puts his gun in the car, locked the trunk of his car, drives into the parking lot of the town hall, and now he's a convention felon. It's always done. The other thing is protection in municipal building. If you deny somebody the right to protect themselves, we don't have security, like it was mentioned, in federal buildings and state houses, things like that. Licensed guns. You need to be able to protect yourself. And the person willing to do some bad harm, first thing I do is look at the place just gun free. There's nobody there that's going to stop me. So I would urge you to vote to just send a message back to detail saying, we're tired of pushing these things on us. Whether you're a gun owner or not, just push back on and say, look, we're tired of mandating things to us. This is our town, and we want to run it the way we go. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Knox, you'll be the last speaker, and then we're gonna put it to a vote.
Alexander Knox, 90
Please keep it brief.
I just wanted to include that carrying rifles or shotguns is generally prohibited with exceptions for hunting, and going armed to disturb peace is traditionally illegal. And in regards to prohibited places, it only disarms the law abiding, and it does not stop the criminals or people that build the tent. There was a shooting a couple weeks ago in Cambridge where a maniac was released, and he had an assault-style weapon, and he was shooting into traffic. That man was stopped by a civilian and a state trooper. We had suffered a tragedy here in 1993. Again, in a prohibited location. That is all.
Okay, well, folks, we're going to put Article 34 to the vote. A yes vote would exempt our municipal administrative buildings from the prohibited areas. This will take a simple majority to pass it. All those in favor of Article 34? Those opposed? Article 34 passes without. Article 35, lengthy, but I will read it all because it's pretty detailed.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes,
I make a motion to pass over indefinitely. This article is not needed, seeing another previous article passed.
we have a second.
Second.
The proper motion, Mr. Gaston, please, to postpone indefinitely.
That was the motion to postpone the article indefinitely.
I have a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, put it to a vote. All those in favor of postponing indefinitely Article 35? Those opposed? Article 35, postponed indefinitely unanimously. Having no further business, do I have a motion to dissolve?
Motion to dissolve.
Second.